Scorpio, let me tell you something your soul already knows but has been aching to hear out loud. It's over. That season of pain, silent battles, and relentless spiritual weight, it's over. You will never go through that again. Not in the same way. Not in that cycle. Not in the version of yourself that once accepted it. You didn't come across this message by accident. Divine timing brought you here. And whether you're seeking clarity, comfort, or confirmation, what you're about to receive is more than a horoscope, it's a turning point. Because today, we are not forecasting another test. We are acknowledging a spiritual graduation. This video holds space for you to breathe again. To remember your light. To feel the shift that's been whispering in your energy for weeks, maybe even years. You're not imagining it, there has been a transformation in you. A vibrational upgrade that now repels what once consumed you. And Scorpio, this is your proof. Let's not sugarcoat it. You've walked through shadows that few could survive. You've prayed prayers that felt like they dissolved into nothing. You've been the backbone for others while no one saw your own breaking point. But even in the silence, God heard. Even in the chaos, the universe was aligning your rebirth. And now it begins. What you're experiencing right now isn't just relief. It's sacred release. You're stepping out of spiritual survival mode and into divine sovereignty. The chains that held you, the emotional, karmic, or psychological, have dissolved not because the world changed, but because you did. You remembered who you are. There is nothing random about the fact that you pressed play. This is a moment of resonance, not coincidence. Something in your spirit brought you here because it knew the vibration of this message would match the frequency of your awakening. You no longer need to prove your strength by how much you can endure. You no longer need to shrink your light to make others comfortable. The era of overgiving, overextending, and over-apologizing is finished. You are not meant to carry what was never yours. You are meant to stand in your wholeness. To be seen. To be loved not for how much you sacrifice but for who you truly are when you're finally free. And that's what today is about. Freedom. Restoration. Return. Before we move into the heart of this message, into the layers of astrology, energy healing, divine timing, and how the law of attraction is about to work with you rather than against you, I want you to do something powerful. Pause. Breathe. Let your spirit recognize this moment. And then, if this message already stirs something within you, take a moment to affirm it. Drop a comment below and simply say, I claim this shift. I will never go through that again. Your voice matters. Your vibration matters. And every time one of you speaks into this energy, you amplify it not just for yourself, but for the collective healing of Scorpio energy across the world. Let me also take this moment to thank you from the most sincere space in my soul for being here. Every like, every comment, every subscribe doesn't just support this channel. It strengthens a spiritual field we are building together. You are part of that field now. You are family here. And I am honored to walk beside you. Stay with me until the end of today's message, because what the heavens are revealing for you is breathtaking. Truly. You've been walking through fire, Scorpio. But you're not burned. You're refined. And this is your return to power. Scorpio, if you found yourself here today, it's because your soul has been echoing a quiet truth. Something deep within you has shifted. And not just recently. This shift has been building quietly over time, like the slow turning of a great wheel far beneath the surface, unseen, but undeniable. The moments when you couldn't sleep because your spirit was aching. The days when you smiled for others but collapsed in private. The countless times you convinced yourself to be okay, because you didn't want to burden anyone else. These were not forgotten. They weren't for nothing. The universe, in its infinite awareness, witnessed every drop of effort you gave to simply hold yourself together. And even if the world never clapped for your survival, heaven did. What you've been through is not something you need to justify or explain anymore. The victory you've achieved isn't one that shows up in trophies or applause. It's a triumph that lives inside your spirit, a quiet, steady pulse of knowing that says, I made it. I'm still here. And that alone makes you extraordinary. Because the war you fought wasn't outside of you, it was within. It was a battle for your worth. Your peace. Your light. And even when you didn't think you were winning, something deeper in you was choosing to continue, moment by moment, breath by breath. Astrologically, this moment of triumph aligns with Pluto, the ruling planet of Scorpio, finishing a karmic purification that's been pressing against the very edges of your identity. Pluto governs transformation, death, and rebirth. But here's what most people don't realize. Pluto doesn't destroy what's real. It only destroys what no longer serves. And in your case, it has taken years, maybe decades, to strip away every mask, every pattern, every attachment that was built around fear, pain, and survival. What remains now is the truth of you. Raw, powerful, whole. This phase you're entering isn't about trying harder or proving anything. It's about recognizing what's already been done in the unseen. You've passed a threshold that many never reach, not because you were never afraid, but because you walked through your fear anyway. You kept your flame alive, even when it flickered, even when the wind howled. You honored your light when it was easiest to let it die. And now, the universe meets you at that threshold, not to test you again but to bless what remains. This is the part of your journey that isn't loud. It's not flashy. It's sacred. It's quiet like a sunrise after a long night. It's gentle like a scar that has finally healed. And it's holy like breath returning to a place that once held only grief. You've been refined in silence. And now, you're stepping into peace that doesn't require explanation. Even if no one else sees it, feel this in your bones. You are no longer the person who once had to fight to be okay. You have become someone who knows how to live from truth, not performance. From presence, not pressure. And while the road ahead still holds unknowns, life always does, it will no longer require you to abandon yourself to survive. So if this part of the message is resonating deep in your chest, take a moment and say it aloud or in the comments. I made it through the fire. I am free from what once broke me. Your words carry vibration. They mark territory. They honor the version of you that did not quit. And they welcome the version of you who now gets to live. Let this moment be a holy pause. The kind where your soul takes a breath. Because from here, Scorpio, everything opens. Not because someone gave you permission, but because you finally gave it to yourself. From this point forward, something within you will no longer tolerate what it once absorbed in silence. You may not even fully realize when the shift happened, but it did. It didn't arrive with fanfare or flashing signs. It came gently, like the soft but certain closing of a door that had been left cracked open for far too long. A karmic loop, once familiar, is no longer accessible to you, not because it ceased to exist, but because you've outgrown the vibration that kept it alive. The relationships that once felt essential, but offered little in return, are now slipping quietly out of your orbit. The patterns that once pulled at your heart, guilt, overgiving, emotional proving, no longer find fertile ground to root in. What's happening here is not rejection, but energetic release. When we elevate in vibration, what is misaligned naturally detaches. This is not loss. It's divine sorting. You are not being abandoned. You are being aligned. Energetically speaking, your field is no longer broadcasting the frequency of needing to be chosen. Instead, it's transmitting something far more powerful: self-recognition. And when you recognize yourself, your value, your light, your capacity, you stop chasing situations that require you to prove what is already true. You begin to operate from sovereignty, not survival. Astrologically, this aligns beautifully with the current shift in Pluto's relationship to Jupiter, two planetary forces that rarely meet without triggering life-altering upgrades. Pluto, the planet of deep transformation and soul excavation, is handing off its long-term lessons to Jupiter, the planet of expansion and opportunity. Together, this cosmic alignment signals a window of evolution where your inner transformation finally begins to reflect outward blessings. But only if you're willing to honor what has changed. This isn't about striving harder or doing more. That was the old energy. That was the version of you that believed love had to be earned through suffering. That stability had to be paid for with emotional silence. That belonging required becoming smaller. That is over. Done. And every time you doubt it, life will gently, or not so gently, remind you, you are not that person anymore. This is the season where you choose. Not from fear. Not from lack. But from clarity. You no longer need to hope for a seat at the table. You are building your own table, one rooted in authenticity, reciprocity, and emotional truth. And because your energy has shifted, the opportunities that come to you now will not demand your soul as the entry fee. They will meet you where you are and offer something real in return. You may find yourself grieving the old cycles, even as you feel relief. That's normal. The identity that once kept you safe is dissolving. But it's not who you are anymore. And every time you say yes to your worth, you teach your nervous system that safety exists in alignment, not in accommodation. So, when you notice the people, habits, or situations falling away, don't chase them. Don't panic. Bless them for what they taught you, and honor yourself for finally choosing differently. Because now you're not waiting to be chosen. Now, you are the one who chooses. And what you're choosing: peace, clarity, alignment is the foundation for everything beautiful that's about to unfold. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself trust it. And if this resonates with you, take a moment to affirm it out loud or below in the comments. I no longer chase. I align. I choose what chooses me back. That simple act of acknowledgement seals the new vibration. You've done the work. The door behind you is closed. And ahead, the path is clear. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Scorpio, what you've just walked through is not simply an ending, it's a sacred initiation. And as we move deeper into the spiritual terrain of this moment, we begin to understand that it isn't just about closing the door to pain, but about what you now have the courage and permission to step into. Energetically, you've passed through a threshold many fear to even face the inner collapse of what is no longer sustainable. In the language of tarot, this is the Tower. The Tower is often misunderstood. People fear its arrival because it represents destruction, the falling of something once believed to be secure. But in truth, the Tower never destroys what's essential. It only removes what was false, built on fear, illusion, or borrowed identity. And that is what has happened to you. The version of yourself that was built around surviving, pleasing, over-functioning, over-explaining has crumbled. Not because you failed, but because your soul refused to keep living in a house made of sand. The collapse, as painful as it may have been, was sacred, necessary, aligned. But now, something profound is happening. From the ashes of that collapse, you are stepping into the star. This is not a metaphor. It's a vibration. The star is the card of healing, clarity, renewal. It is the promise that after the storm, there is not only peace but beauty. It is the sacred breath that follows the scream. The soft light that arrives once the fire has cleared the field. And you are standing in that light now. The shift from tower to star is not just symbolic, it's energetic. In practical terms, you'll begin to notice that what once triggered you no longer holds the same charge. That old wounds begin to feel more like lessons than scars. That the parts of you once hid, your softness, your tenderness, your truth, are now the very things leading you home. This is your glow returning. Not because you performed for it, but because you finally allowed yourself to receive it. What's powerful about this phase is that you're no longer trying to save anyone. For years, perhaps lifetimes, your worth was tied to how useful, how sacrificial, how unshakably strong you could be. But strength without rest is not resiliency, it's punishment. And you are no longer punishing yourself with the need to hold everyone and everything together. You now understand that being real is safer than being perfect. And more magnetic, too. The people, opportunities, and blessings that will now enter your life are not drawn to the version of you that pretended. They're drawn to the one that healed. This is not the time to rush. The star asks us to be present, to return to what is essential, to slow down and trust that your life no longer needs to be held in place by anxiety or over-efforting. You are learning to receive without guilt, to be supported without fear, to be seen without needing to filter. And that, Scorpio, is a revolution. One that changes everything from here forward. The star reminds us that hope is not wishful thinking, it's a strategy of the soul. It's what kept you going when nothing made sense. It's what whispered to you in the dark, just one more step. And now, your faith is being matched by reality. Not because things are suddenly perfect, but because you are now aligned with peace. And peace always finds its way home. If these words resonate with your inner landscape, if they feel like something you forgot you knew, speak them aloud or share them in the comments. I am ready to live in the light I used to only hope for. That simple act of declaration seals this vibration into your field. You've come through the tower. You are walking in the star. Let yourself shine not as someone who never broke, but as someone who broke and still chose to love. That is the truest kind of light. Scorpio, If you've made it to this part of the message, it's because something inside you has longed for peace deeper than momentary relief. You've survived so much, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And now, there's a quiet moment of reckoning unfolding in your life, a moment when the storms that once defined you are no longer necessary to prove how strong you are. You're beginning to realize that healing isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the stillness after the storm. The first breath you take without fear. The moment you no longer feel the need to look over your shoulder. The truth is, many of us grow up learning that pain must be earned before peace is deserved. That if you want to receive something beautiful, you must first suffer long enough to be worthy of it. But this idea, though deeply ingrained, is not rooted in truth, it's rooted in survival conditioning. The wisdom of your soul knows otherwise. It knows that peace is not a prize. It's a birthright. And what you're beginning to claim now, Scorpio, is not something you had to earn through punishment. It is the natural outcome of choosing yourself. In the language of energy, what's shifting inside you is a recalibration of your core frequency. For so long, your vibration may have been wrapped in the residue of trauma, guilt, over-responsibility, and self-doubt. And now, as that energy lifts, a new pattern is taking root, one that is lighter, clearer, more aligned with grace and internal knowing. This shift isn't just emotional, it's cellular. Your nervous system is learning what it means to live without being on constant alert. To breathe without bracing. To receive without guilt. That, Scorpio, is the miracle unfolding beneath the surface. What's beautiful about this phase is that it's not about external validation. It's not about applause or milestones. It's about integrity. The way you're learning to show up for yourself now, consistently, gently, without shame, is more powerful than any trophy. And while others might not fully grasp the depth of your transformation, you do. And that is enough. You no longer need others to witness your pain to make it valid. You've stopped needing people to understand your journey in order for it to be real. This quiet power, it's sacred. And it cannot be taken from you. We often talk about breakthrough as a dramatic momental lightning bolt, a sudden shift. But in truth, the most profound breakthroughs are slow, steady, and deeply personal. They don't come with fireworks. They come with tears falling in silence. With the soft realization that you don't need to carry that burden anymore. That you're allowed to set it down, even if no one else helps you. That you can walk away from what no longer serves, even if no one else understands why. This is the kind of power that reshapes futures not because it forces change, but because it invites it from a place of deep surrender. You've reached a point in your path where your energy no longer entertains what depletes you. You're no longer available for manipulation, for inconsistency, for self-sacrifice disguised as loyalty. And that's not bitterness, it's wisdom. You've learned that protecting your peace is not selfish. It's sacred. If any of this resonates in your body, not just your mind, let it land. Let it soften you. Let it remind you that you are safe now. You are safe to choose joy. To choose simplicity. To choose ease. Not because you've been perfect, but because you've been present. And presence is what creates real healing. If you're feeling this shift, speak it into your space. Say aloud or comment below, I choose peace, and peace chooses me. That statement becomes an energetic contract. A gentle yet powerful declaration to the universe that you are ready for what comes next, not from fear, but from trust. And in that trust, everything begins to bloom. What's unfolding in your life right now, Scorpio, is not only the closure of an emotional cycle but the activation of a higher vibrational field of frequency that begins to shift everything from the inside out. And here's the quiet truth that so many forget: the universe does not respond to what you say, or even to what you want, it responds to what you are. It speaks the language of frequency, not vocabulary. This is where the law of attraction becomes more than a concept. It becomes a living rhythm that shapes your reality in real time. When you used to carry the belief that love had to be earned through pain, your energy unconsciously called in relationships that mirrored that very lesson. You attracted people and patterns that required you to prove your worth, to sacrifice, to save, and to be everything for everyone else just to feel barely enough. But now, the belief has shifted. The core vibration has recalibrated. What you're beginning to embody isn't the energy of desperation or depletion, but the quiet, unwavering current of self-acceptance. And this changes everything. This is why, when your inner truth now whispers, "I am loved simply because I exist," the universe aligns in response. You're no longer calling in circumstances to validate your pain, you're redrawing in mirrors that reflect your healing. You are attracting support that feels balanced, opportunities that feel alive, and love that feels mutual. Because your energy now says, "I no longer carry what doesn't honor me." And it doesn't stop there. In numerology, the vibration of the number 9 surrounds you now, one of the most sacred cycles in the language of soul timing. 9 symbolizes endings that give way to powerful rebirths. Not sudden reinventions, but deep closures that allow for gentle, lasting integration. It tells us, you have completed something ancient, something generational, something karmic. You've walked out of an energetic chapter that once defined your choices, and now, a new one begins, not because someone handed it to you, but because you've evolved into the version of you who can live it. This is a moment to notice the patterns that no longer have a hold on you, the people who no longer trigger you, the stories you no longer subscribe to. And in doing so, you make room for new agreements, internal contracts that match the frequency of this new era. You are not meant to save the world through exhaustion. You are meant to serve the world through alignment. There is a profound difference. And in the language of energy, even color has a vibration. Right now, your field is drawn to the healing resonance of sapphire blue and radiant gold. Sapphire, with its connection to intuition, clarity, and spiritual protection, reminds you to trust what you know, not just what you see. It creates a subtle shield, grounding your insights in strength. Gold, shimmering with divine brilliance, symbolizes illumination and the return of confidence. It's not just about being seen by the world, it's about recognizing your own light again and allowing it to shine without apology. This is why I encourage you to bring these colors into your everyday life, not for superstition, but for resonance. Wear them with intention. Place them near you. Let them become part of your field. Let them remind you of who you've become. And if this message speaks to the frequency you've been feeling but couldn't quite explain, take a moment and declare it now. I attract what honors my light. I align with what reflects my truth. Say it aloud. Write it below. Not for me, but for you. Because you are no longer waiting to be chosen, you are already chosen by the field of energy you've cultivated within yourself. And everything that enters your life from this point forward will rise to meet it. Scorpio, if you've made it this far, I want you to pause. Just for a moment. And let this truth settle into your heart. You no longer need anyone's permission to begin living a more radiant, aligned, and powerful version of your life. The cycle that kept you in waiting, in proving, in sacrificing for love or validation, it's over. Truly over. You are not in the same energetic frequency that once attracted depletion. You are no longer who you were when that pain first began. You made it through the night when your soul was screaming silently. You stayed when everything in you wanted to run. You loved when you barely had anything left to give yourself. And that, dear Scorpio, is not just survival. That is awakening. You've risen not just because the pain ended, but because somewhere deep inside, you decided that it no longer had the power to define you. Now the path ahead may still hold uncertainty. Yes, old patterns may knock on your door again. But the difference now is you. You're not the same. The version of you that answered from fear has evolved into someone who responds from wisdom. Someone who chooses alignment over obligation. Someone who knows peace is not a luxury but a non-negotiable right. And that kind of growth is irreversible. So ask yourself, what if you stopped negotiating your worth? What if you no longer explained your light to people committed to misunderstanding it? What if you trusted, truly trusted, that everything you desire already belongs to the version of you who has made peace with being seen exactly as you are? The universe is not waiting for you to be perfect. It's simply waiting for you to say yes to what already lives within you. Are you willing to act from your healing, instead of reacting from your wounds? Are you ready to build, speak, move, and live like someone who has been chosen by life, by purpose, by light? Take this message and don't just hear it, live it. Wear it like a second skin. Let it infuse the decisions you make this week. Let it shape the conversations you have with yourself. You don't need to beg for miracles anymore. You are the miracle. And that means you have the power to co-create what comes next. If this message stirred something in you, even quietly drop it into the comments. I confirm my soul has exited the old cycle. I am ready for what's next. Let that sentence be your declaration to the field you're stepping into. Your words carry energy. Let them affirm the new standard you've set for your life. And if this message served you, if it reminded you of your worth, your resilience, your sacred power, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone else who might be on the edge of remembering who they are. Every time you support this space, you help keep the flame alive for all of us. And for that, from the heart of Miracle of the Sign, thank you. Your presence, your energy, your courage to show up, it matters more than you know. Stay until the end, Scorpio. Because I promise you, the best is not just coming. It's already here. And this time, you'll know how to receive it.